My mic is probably a bit louder than usual. Like I mentioned on the last video, I'm working on maximizing the volume to keep it kind of equal with other YouTube channels. So if it gets too loud or it starts peaking, somebody in the chat let me know. Let me see here. Where's my chat option? I've been told I don't look enough at the chat, so I'm going to pull that up over to the side here. Okay. Today we are going to be ranking all of the 2022-23 NBA City Edition uniforms. There's 29 of them. Every team has one except the Utah Jazz. And we're doing this just to get prepared for Monday's live stream where we talk about the NBA and all the things happening in the world of basketball at the moment. But for now, you know how tier lists work. We start, go through a picture of every uniform, and put it on either a superior tier all the way down to an F tier. And we will start with the Portland Trailblazers. So I'll just set it in C so you can see it at the moment. Trailblazers uniform, the PDX is their airport code. So it's representative of the city itself. It's got this cool black and teal color scheme. And you will probably remember from my hockey tier list that I like dark uniforms, so that's a big plus. I like weird color schemes. However, the one thing that I don't love about this is nothing about this uniform screams Portland Trailblazers to me. If I were to see this on, like, watching a game, the teal would definitely make me think it's either like a Hornets game or a Spurs game, and it might take me a second to connect this uniform with the Trailblazers. So that would be the only gripe I have about this. Otherwise, I think it's an excellently designed jersey. But for that sake, I'm actually going to keep it in C tier, just for the purpose of representing the brand that is the Trailblazers. I don't think this uniform represents the team very well. Next, we got the Milwaukee Bucks. I might be biased on this one. This is their blue. I don't even know what they actually are calling this jersey. I'm going to put it in B tier. We'll take a look at it here. If you scroll down to the Bucks, they have not typically worn blue in the past. Obviously, they're more of a green, purple, green, red, green, cream team. But one thing I will say about how I feel about these uniforms is I'm not going to take into account what they necessarily represent or the stories behind them unless that story is obvious in the jersey design itself. Now, what I can see about this jersey to me screams Great Lakes. That's what I see in the blue. And then I do see kind of a cultural ethnic background on the side stripes. It's almost this native type of chevron pattern, but it's supposed to represent the neighborhood of Bronzeville. If I weren't from Milwaukee, I wouldn't know that necessarily. So in terms of jersey design itself, it's a little plain except for the sides. I'm going to keep it in B tier. Like I said, I'm biased because I'm a Bucks fan. I do like the way they look. They suffer from the same issue that the Trailblazers uniforms do in terms of they don't necessarily feel like Bucks uniforms to me. But they're still nice uniforms. I like them. Actually, I'll be fair. I'm going to drop this one down to C tier just to be fair to the Trailblazers. Even though I do like those uniforms, I think there's a lot more that could be done, and I think a lot more that could scream Bucks. Plug in my computer here so we don't die on stream. Apologies for the hockey stream on Monday. We did lose internet in my neighborhood. There's a massive power outage, and so I recorded the second half of that and have re-uploaded it on the channel. I've also started a second channel completely unrelated to spreadsheets and the likes of what we do here. So if you're interested in checking that out, it's called Echo Worm. Worm spelt with an I instead of an O. Basically, what I'll be doing over there is audiobook readings and potentially some documentaries and film style videos down the road. But anyways, separate channel to this one. Back on track, we'll talk about the Cleveland Cavaliers uniforms, and I really don't like these. I do like that they're working on branding the land. I think that's a clever marketing tactic to use that as. I'm struggling to find words to describe what I'm trying to say here. I like having the land on a uniform, but everything else about this uniform is really plain to me. To me, this screams like disco 70s LA. Nothing about it other than the words and the invisible Cavaliers logo patch says Cleveland to me. I know that they're switching from their traditional gold to more of a metallic bronze type gold color, and that's where this comes in here. But I don't really like white uniforms to begin with, and just having no colors in this at all drops this down. I won't put it F tier, but I will put it very low D tier, just for lack of really any substance from at least my perspective. Next, we got the Los Angeles Clippers. I'll pull it up so you guys can see it here. Man, internet is slow again today. My apologies. This shouldn't be too long of a live stream. We did the 63 uniforms of the NHL in about an hour and a half. This is about half that, so possibly half an hour, 45 minutes. But Los Angeles, this one to me definitely, at least from a distance, says stained glass, so I'm thinking Catholic heritage. What else are they saying here? Colorful mosaic on the chest. Watts Towers. Someone familiar with LA would know a lot more about Watts Towers than me. I really like the different colored shoulder stripes. I think it's subtle enough where it works and it's eye-catching. You have the all three of the Clippers' main colors on the two sleeves and the neckline. I like the cursive. I like that they have that trim going at the bottom of the jersey too. For me, this is a solid high C, low B uniform. Nothing too crazy about it. Nothing super standout except for obviously the stained glass in the middle there. So I will be generous and I'll put this up in B tier. Sacramento Kings are next. They've been wearing these a lot this year, it feels like, or at least all of the highlights I'm seeing from the Kings are these gray, almost a mid-2000 throwback uniform. I like that they have embraced the purple and gray color scheme. That's very unique. I'm trying to think of any other sports team in the United States and Canada that has purple and gray as a color scheme. I mean, the Los Angeles Kings may be used to, but it's more so black and gray than anything now. But everything about this screams Sacramento Kings to me. I mean, I've never been to Sacramento, so I don't know a ton about the culture of that city itself. The font and the number font are obviously from their more successful days in like 2003-ish, 2004. I like that they went with the gray base instead of purple. I think they are trying to not distance themselves from their main color scheme, but at least make it different enough where people would want to buy a new uniform. I like the triangular piping on the side. To me, when I see that, I think of Golden One Center. That's kind of the look of the arena on the outside. I don't know if that's what they were going for here. But I do correlate that piping with their arena and their kind of their home base in Sacramento. Obviously, the purple spotlight and everything to do with that. So I don't want to put these in A tier necessarily, but it's definitely high B tier for me. Hot take, and I'm going to piss off all of the Canadian basketball fans here. I'm not a big fan of the Raptors getting rid of all of their colors. So the Raptors' new uniforms here are a black base, and they've been doing this since they won the title, right? They have this black base, and they've taken out all of the colors and replaced it with kind of this Vegas gold type style. And they say it's to celebrate the team's city and culture. But when I think Toronto, I think the color blue, actually, because of the Blue Jays, because of the Maple Leafs, because of the Argonauts. The only teams that don't really have blue that are from Toronto are the Raptors and the soccer team Toronto FC. Nothing about this background pattern impacts me as someone who's not from Toronto. Gold styling and subtle details. Raptors nod to the diversity of Toronto. Toronto's 6 boroughs are deconstructed. So that's supposed to represent the 6 boroughs, I guess, because it's the shapes of the boroughs. I wouldn't notice that unless I was looking really close. I like the number font, but I don't really love anything else about this uniform, and I don't care for the direction that the Raptors are going in uniform-wise. I think black and red is a solid staple. I think throwing purple in there every once in a while as a throwback is really solid. I don't love the minimalist idea that they're going with here. For me, this is D tier, but I will put it above Cleveland just because I like dark bases. Spurs. So I got a couple different thoughts here, and I think mostly it's going to be positive. I'll probably put them up high B tier. But my thoughts on this Spurs uniform here, where are they at here? Southwest. Obviously, they're thrown back to the 1990s Spurs logo with the pink and the gold and obviously the teal. They have kind of an Tex-Mex, almost Aztec pattern going on the sides. Pretty simple. I don't love the cartoon, like 90s Nickelodeon font thing they kind of have going on there. Whereas I liked the different color shoulders with the Clippers because it was subtle enough. I think this is too bold. I think it would have looked a lot better if both sides had been pink or just black in general. I do like that they included the old pink. All in all, this is a pretty solid uniform to me. It stands out. And because I know the history of the Spurs, it says Spurs to me, so it's not negative in taking away from the main color scheme. I'm gonna put it between the Clippers and the Kings. I don't know that I like it as much as the Kings. I might come back to that at the end of this video. Staying in a teal direction, but more a blue idea. This I have more negative opinions on, and this is the Phoenix Suns. So if we scroll down to the Suns here, Pacific Division. There they are. Obviously, it doesn't have any word mark on there. It's just the sun logo in the center. Celebration of Native American culture, which actually I think the Super Bowl is doing really well this year, making it feel like an Arizona type event. Whereas with this jersey, I can see it with the colors. The teal and orange are kind of a big Southwestern native staple piece. I don't know what I'm necessarily looking at on the sides here. And when I see the colors inside the number 1 there, nothing about that necessarily screams native. It just, to me, seems colorful. I think there's a lot more they could have done if they were trying to represent the native culture of the Southwestern United States. And I don't love that they just have a non-detailed black and blue plain logo just sitting right at the center. I think it's C tier. I think it's a good-looking uniform, but misses in all of the directions that they were going for in trying to represent what they were planning on representing with this. I'm going to put it at the bottom of what we have for C tier at the moment. Minnesota. So this is my local team, right? I should like this more than I do, but I really don't. When I see these uniforms, I think... How do I say this in a way that's not... I'm saying this as a white individual, correct? So everything I'm about to say, take with a grain of salt, and none of this is meant to be offensive at all. When I see this, if it's supposed to represent the... what do they say here? Colorful representation of the creative community across the great state of Minnesota. See, when I see this, I'm thinking of like 70s through 90s black family sitcoms, right? I don't know what about that is thrown at me. But as someone who has spent a lot of time in the city of Minneapolis and in the Twin Cities areas, I don't know what that says about Minnesota or the Twin Cities. I think they could have been a lot bolder. They could have gone for something like, I mean, you don't want to go all out and put George Floyd's face on a uniform, but something to better represent the African American culture of Minneapolis, because that is the significant majority of the Timberwolves fan base, is the African American, not diaspora, but there's a lot of African Americans in, well, not just African Americans, specifically African immigrants in Minneapolis, and I think they could have done more to represent them as a culture. To me, when I see this, I'm thinking of Little Bill. I'm thinking of the Jeffersons. I'm thinking, genuinely, when I see these uniforms, and this is really bad to say, but I think of the Cosby Show. Something about these uniforms makes me think of Bill Cosby's sweaters and the different the colors and the color scheme on that show. And that's not something I necessarily want to think about when I'm watching basketball. I don't love that it's a white base. I think it could have gone a lot better with like a dark blue or a black base. But I think there's a lot that could have been done differently, and I don't love these uniforms. I'm going to put them high D. Do I put them? No, I'm going to put them below Toronto. So I'm going to put Minnesota there. Orlando has pretty solid uniforms. All in all, they always have. They got the pinstripe look down to a T. I like their logo redesign they did about 15 years ago to make it seem a little less cartoonish. Where am I looking here? Southeast Orlando. So they minimalized the blue here, which I don't necessarily love. But what are they going for here? Excuse me. Obviously, Disney's a major part of the city of Orlando. And they talk about the kingdom. I like this font, but I don't necessarily understand what it represents. And when I look at this uniform from up close at least, I actually wish the blue was lighter. I think this uniform is too dark for its own good. I don't necessarily love that the fonts don't line up. I like the subtle pinstripes. I really do. Every time I see pinstripes on a basketball uniform, I'm into it hardcore. Magic, Pacers, all that. I like it. This one, the more I look at it, the less I like it. And it's because of how dark that blue is. I'm going to put it high D tier above the Raptors. Pacers. I was just talking about the Pacers and how I like their pinstripes. This uniform, however, I'm not huge on the whole sides up the chest pattern idea, and I'll show you what I mean once I find the Central Division. Past and present. So it looks like it's supposed to represent the Gainbridge Fieldhouse, which makes sense. That is the shape of the arena. It's a great arena. It's a great town for basketball. Huge town for college basketball in history. I like that they lightened their blue. See, this is what I was talking about with the Magic. I like that they lightened the blue for this uniform. I like a lot of the elements of this uniform. What I don't like is how contrasting the external blue is with this weird shape in the middle. And like I said, I know that it's supposed to represent the arena, but it doesn't fit in terms. I wish it were smaller, actually. I wish the shape was tucked in more on the uniform, and it didn't kind of go all the way out to the arms. I think it looks really awkward, especially when the jersey's lying flat like this. I think it looks a little better when it's being worn. This is low C, high B tier. Let's see how I feel about it going. I'll put it above the Magic. I'll put it low C tier. And we move on to now the Grizzlies. And I, to save my voice, am going to sponsor the video with Ben & Jerry's Chocolate Chip Cookie Dough Core. Okay, Southwest. Grizzlies. Grizzlies have a history of really good uniforms, starting from their days back in Vancouver all the way until now. I really like the colors of this uniform. I like the late 80s, early 90s kind of... as a wrestling fan, it makes me think of the WrestleMania logo. You know, you got that the shading of the gold into the maroon kind of makes it feel championship caliber, for lack of a better. It looks like a trophy. It looks like an awards ceremony type logo to me. And plus, within the font, you got that light blue tint. The great pattern on the outside here. Something about these colors together stops it from being S tier for me. I don't necessarily think that the teal and the bronze and the gold go together that great on this uniform. I think it looks really good, but the colors are just barely holding it off from the superior spot. But this, I think it's safe to say, is our first A uniform. Brooklyn Nets, I don't like at all. I think it looks really cartoony, and I know that they're harkening back to a previous City Edition uniform. Which was the neighborhood uniform? The Bed-Stuy uniforms. They got that scratch pattern. I like the artistic design on the side. I wish it was on both sides. It's not. I don't love that they have this kind of weird bracket type pattern going on outside the nets. I think the only reason they added that was to give more color to the uniform, which I think they could have done a lot better by adding color to the piping on the shoulders and the neck of this uniform. There were a lot of good ideas that could have gone into this, and I don't think they worked at all. So I'm putting this... I'm tempted to put it F tier, actually, but I'm going to put it... It's not as bad as Cleveland. And it's kind of got the same issues that Minnesota does, so I'm going to put those there. Washington. I like that a lot of DC's teams are using the cherry pattern. I do really like that. These ones here, the color really works. I think the blue with the cherry works really well. You got the cherry blossom patterns on the sides here. I don't love the font, but that's what they've chosen to go with for their team branding, so nothing about this says not the Washington Wizards. I like the little cherry blossom over the eye. I think this is a solid uniform. I don't love how plain the front is. I think there's more they could have done with it. Genuinely, I'm not a huge fan of the color pink. I like that they're going with it because it's representative of the city, but this is another one of those where my personal biases towards certain colors are going to affect where this lands. So this is going to go very high. You know what? I will buckle down. It's going in A tier. I was tempted to put it above the Kings in B tier, but I think it deserves to be A tier. Luka Magic. We're going to the Mavs. These are clean uniforms when I can find them. Now everything about this screams 70s Magic basketball, or Magic, 70s Maverick basketball. You got the double colors of blue and green. You got the old Dallas font. You got the retro shading underneath. I think this is another A uniform. There's not a ton I want to say about it beyond that, because it's a fairly simple uniform, but every little detail they have in there works perfectly with the uniform, and overall looks very good on the court. I mean, every time I see Luka pulling up just bizarre shots or bizarre moments on like the NBA's Instagram page. Usually they're wearing this uniform, and I think it looks really good on the court, especially with that new court design that they have. I'm going to put this, actually, this is my favorite jersey of the lot so far. New York. I do really like New York. I think the Knicks have a serious uniform problem. Based on their color scheme, I think they are running out of ideas with what to do and keep it iconic. However, their black uniforms, specifically when they throw blue in there, looks really good to me. Everything about this screams New York Knicks, Showtime basketball, Madison Square Garden. Here's what I would like to say, and I'm second guessing now that I'm thinking about it. I wanted to say that I wish there was more blue in the lettering and the number, but I don't know how that would work, and I think it would make it look worse. So I like what they went with, and I think all in all this is a solid uniform. I like the fact that the stripes are kind of coming inward on the sides, pinching it up a little. I don't have any qualms with this uniform, and I think it might honestly be better than Dallas. It looks better than Dallas, but it's not as iconic as Dallas. So where do I put it? I'll put it there just for my own sanity. Los Angeles Lakers have bad uniforms. Hot take. Iconic uniforms, I don't like when they wear white. I think the Lakers should stick with a gold uniform as their home and a purple uniform as their road, and I don't think they should wear black, and I don't think they should wear white. Where are they at here? I really don't think they should wear white, black, and purple. And this uniform says, right here, features elements emblematic of our history and city. This year, rather than have the details tell a story, the uniform has been intentionally stripped back to its most simple design. The uniform is not the story. It's a vehicle to tell the stories behind the individual change makers around Los Angeles. So essentially what they're saying is we were lazy on purpose, and we want you to ask about why we did it. That's kind of a cop-out to me. I really don't like... I don't like the way that... I think I'd be fine with this uniform if the number wasn't black. I think having the black number with the uneven shadow underneath makes it look really tacky. And I know that they kind of did that on purpose, but that doesn't do anything for me in ranking the jerseys. This is going F tier. Atlanta Hawks, the peach uniforms. Let's talk about the Hawks, baby. Southeast. Atlanta. I really like them. To me, this screams Atlanta is the music capital of the United States right now, and there's a lot more history than what we got going on. So here's a look at it. Obviously, it's got the peach elements. It sticks solid with the black. I love the font. It's a little simple for my tastes. However, it works really well. I am going to place this one above the Grizzlies. All right, I'm satisfied with that. There will be at least one uniform I'm going to put in S tier. I promise. And I know which one it is. And I don't know that I'll move any more up. Next we got the Pelicans. They are hearkening back to, I think, the New Orleans Jazz days here. Where's my Southwestern division? So they got the limited rainbow. They got the purple, green, and gold colors that kind of represent New Orleans. You see it a lot in New Orleans-based events like Super Bowls or Like WrestleMania, every time it's in New Orleans, you see those colors line up. Mardi Gras obviously is the big inspiration behind it. The font is unique. I don't love it, but it's unique enough where I'd stand it because it stands out. To me, it looks brassy, like brass instruments. It screams New Orleans. I don't typically love rainbow uniforms or like multicolor top stripes like that, but these look really good. There's a matching fleur-de-lis that shows up on the shorts that aren't pictured here, but yeah, the official colors of the Mardi Gras season and can be seen all over New Orleans on flags, floats, and traditional king cakes. This is another A-tier uniform for me, and we might overload our A-tier. I'm going to put this above Washington. Yeah, right there. Miami. Miami is an interesting case. Let's talk about it and then make our mind up there. Southeast. Miami mashup. A follow-up to 2021's groundbreaking Miami mashup concept, which looked better than this one. First of all, what's my biggest gripe? I don't like white uniforms. I really don't like white uniforms when there's not a lot going on. And outside of the logo and the number, there is nothing to this uniform. There's a single thin gold stripe on the side, but then the rest of the uniform is just really busy for no reason other than they're hearkening back to every part of the team's history at once, and not in like a creative way, just this is almost so Miami Vice that they've taken serial killers like clip letter, you know, where they make like ransom notes with the magazines and put it on a uniform, and thought that just because there's a lot going on there, it's going to look good. It doesn't, to me. And maybe you have a different opinion. Feel free to talk about it in the comments below. We got nothing in the chat so far, which is fine. I wondered if some of my guys would hop on, but it's a Friday evening, so I don't expect them to. It's too busy for its own good. It looks tacky. I don't like it, and it's a white uniform with nothing else going on. So, I'll put it above the Lakers. I will put it above the Lakers, but it's still F tier for me. Houston, throwing back to the Yao Ming days. I like that they went back to like the old artificial pinstripes. Where are they at here? So you got like the 90s font going across the middle, and then you got like the fake rocket pinstripes going up. I don't love that they got that blue glow, the tips to them. I wish it was just solid pinstripes, but all in all, I don't think this is a bad looking uniform. It's bold, especially in comparison to their current color scheme. But if you know the history of the Rockets, the Heat should have learned something from this uniform about how to make different elements of your history blend. This is a really good example. I think this is a solid B tier. And I'm going to put it at the top of B tier, above the Kings. Next, we go to the Clit uniforms, and that's the only time I'm going to say that word on this stream. But Charlotte has a really weird acronym, and it is really a bold statement to put it on a uniform. But how do I feel about these uniforms? I wish there was more purple. There's no purple at all. I don't love that the pinstripes are not symmetrical. They're alternating, but they're not symmetrical. I don't like that necessarily. I don't think the gold looks that good with the color teal that they've chosen for these uniforms. I think the normal Hornets teal is a little darker, and even that would have looked better on these uniforms. I think it's bold. It's not a bad looking uniform, but to me, it's fairly solidly smack in the middle. I mean, this is a fairly average uniform to me. It screams Charlotte just because of the acronym, but it doesn't scream Hornets, and I think that's to its detriment. I think it would look better symmetrically. I think it would look better with a different color scheme. I'm going to put it above the Pacers because it looks like a better uniform. Warriors. Where are we at with the Warriors here? Scroll. I'm all the way down. Celebrating women, who incorporated various design elements to represent femininity, friendship, optimism, and diversity. I wouldn't get that from this uniform. I mean, I understand it, and I don't need to go on this stream and explain why a rose makes sense in representing femininity. I think this uniform would look a lot better if it were just the top. If it had the rose and the numbers and the Warriors. I think the print pattern on the bottom makes this uniform almost unbearable to look at. It's way too busy for its own good. It looks really tacky. And like I said, this uniform would be 3 tiers higher if it were just the top crest. Maybe add some striping at the bottom to make it less bland, but putting this massive, like, faded print gold rose just straight on the uniform at the bottom just doesn't do it for me. I don't love it. I'm going to put it after Minnesota, but above the Nets. Denver Canuggets. With a K for Canugget. Pacific, Southwest, Northwest. City's iconic architecture serves as a symbol for a number of local civic organizations. I wouldn't know that. To me, it's fairly bland. I like the different colors they got going on, and I like that when I look at this uniform, I feel like I'm in a high altitude. I like the color fading on the side, and maybe that's why they went for kind of the blandness on the side. When I look at those blue stripes turning lighter and lighter, I do feel like an atmospheric kind of mile-high city vibe from it. I like that they have the Denver red, that they don't use that much anymore. I don't love this uniform because it's white and fairly bland, but it's not bad. So I'm going to put this one the bottom of C tier. Celtics. Let me pull it up and explain to you why this is the only superior tier uniform in the league for the City Editions. Celtics also have a uniform problem, right? There's not a lot of options you can have with the color scheme that you haven't already done. You can make uniforms look really bad. They've had a lot of really bad uniforms in the last few years. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, they pulled this, and it looks unreal. They went away with the typical Celtics font to do a cursive look. They added a gold trim instead of just the usual black and white. What else? The black sides and the patterns on the sides look phenomenal on the court. I hate the Boston Celtics, but I love this uniform. And props to whoever decided to give a complete revamp, because everything about this uniform, despite not looking like a Celtics uniform, still screams Boston Celtics. And I love it. Everything about this uniform works perfectly, and that is why it is the only S-tier uniform in this entire series. 4 left. We will next go to Chicago. Bulls also have a uniform problem, and part of that is the uniforms from the 90s are so iconic and they've worn them for so long that there's not a lot that they want to do differently. To me, this uniform literally just screams, this is a Bulls uniform. I like that they have kind of the striped piping on the side, which is new. Municipal Y, symbol unity, represent. I don't get that. I don't think it looks bad. I think it's kind of bland. I think it just looks like a normal Bulls uniform. And if I didn't know enough details about uniforms, I would say this looks exactly like the ones Michael Jordan wore in the 1990s. So it's solid low C, high D tier for me, and I'm actually going to put it in D tier above Orlando. Detroit went with a green uniform, and that is really, really different. Obviously, they're wearing the teals as their throwbacks this year, but as far as I'm aware, it tells a story bigger than Detroit basketball. I don't think that the Pistons have ever worn a green uniform, and they have not. Represents the green iconic walls of the old St. Cecilia's gym. Okay, so it's a Detroit story, and if I weren't from Detroit, I wouldn't know that. This uniform does exactly what the Lakers uniform was trying to do and failed at because they didn't make the uniform look good. When I look at this uniform and I go, oh, that says Detroit, I don't remember the Pistons ever wearing green. Why are they wearing green? That makes me want to look up the history of this uniform and what it represents. I think it's a good-looking uniform. To its detriment, however, it doesn't fit the Pistons. It doesn't fit the team that is playing in Detroit, which are the Detroit Pistons. It tells a story of the history of basketball in Detroit, just not the history of that team. I think this is a good-looking uniform. I'm going to put it B tier. I'm going to put it right under the Spurs in B tier. And I think it would be significantly higher were that color scheme more entrenched in the Pistons' history. Speaking of blue and red teams, East Coast, we're going to Philadelphia. We got two more, and then we'll close this bad boy up. Where are the 76ers? Brotherly love. There's a lot of things that I will applaud them for trying with this uniform. I think a lot of it doesn't look good. One thing I do like is the slanted piping on the sides makes a fairly bland uniform look a little busier. I like that they didn't just go for red numbers. They added the blue trim around the outside. And I don't hate the City of Brotherly Love logo. Apart from the color scheme, nothing about this screams 76ers, even with the thing that says City of Brotherly Love smack on the front of it. And most of why I don't like this uniform might come from the double dose of white uniform with white piping around the shoulders. So I don't love this uniform, but there's nothing inherently negative I can say about it. Maybe to some it looks a little tacky, just that awkward like sultanic cursive font they got going on there. But I don't, even for a white uniform, like this is pretty high up for me, and this might be the highest one I have. I'm gonna put it above the Pacers, and actually I'm gonna put it above. No, it's going above the Pacers, so it'll go right there. And then last but not least, maybe least, it's the Thunder. It's the Thunder. You tell me if they're worth being more than least. So, Northwest Division. Unity honors the people of Oklahoma. I don't see that necessarily. I just see Thunder colors in a really bizarre mix. I don't know that I love the way that they've mixed these colors. I don't like that the light blue... I don't like the order of the stripes on the neck and the shoulders. I think it would look a lot better if it were blue, orange, and red in that order or the reverse. I wish there was more coloration on the word mark and the number itself. And I don't love that the sides kind of have this satin, almost, no, not even satin. It's more of like a leathery finish. And it's almost maroon instead of, I don't think maroon really fits with the color scheme of the Thunder. I like that they have those kind of electric, bright red, bright yellow, bright orange, bright blue. I think it really works for them, and it works really well on black. But something about this uniform is just missing something or has added something that takes away from that. So I'm going to put this low C. No, I'm going to put it right there. So that's how we end up ranking all 29 City Edition uniforms, starting from the bottom to the top. F tier, we got the Lakers in last place, followed by the Miami Heat. D tier, we go from Cleveland, Brooklyn, Golden State, Minnesota, Toronto, Orlando, Oklahoma City, Chicago. C tier, we got the Nuggets, the Pacers, the 76ers, Hornets, Suns, Trailblazers, and Bucks. B tier, we got Clippers, Pistons, Spurs, Kings, and Rockets. A tier, we got the Washington Wizards, Memphis, New Orleans, Atlanta, New York, and Dallas. And the only superior uniform and the top of the list, we have the Boston Celtics. So thank you guys very much for watching this tier list for the 2022-2023 NBA City Edition uniforms.